There is something fundamentally irrational about the human condition. We build sensible houses with roofs that don't leak and walls that keep the wind out, and then we spend our weekends dreaming of living in a glass box on a cliff. We eat sensible food to keep our hearts ticking, but what we really crave is a deep-fried Mars bar. And nowhere is this glorious irrationality more magnificently on display than in our obsession with the supercar. These are not machines built for sensible purposes. They are not designed to take the children to school unless your children are very small and don't mind sitting on each other's laps in a space lined with carbon fiber. They are certainly not built for the weekly shop. Try fitting a bag of potatoes into the luggage compartment of a Lamborghini, and you'll quickly discover it was designed to hold precisely one pair of leather driving gloves and a single, very expensive silk scarf. And yet, we are utterly captivated by them. The supercar is more than just a car, it is a promise. It's a rolling, thundering, fire-spitting sculpture that tells the world you have arrived. It speaks a universal language of speed, power, and outrageous fortune. When one rumbles past on a city street, heads turn, conversations stop, people whip out their phones not just to take a picture, but to capture a moment of vehicular theater. It's the noise, a glorious, unapologetic roar that rips through the mundane hum of everyday traffic. It's the shape, impossibly low and wide as if it has been poured onto the road rather than built. It's the sheer, unadulterated drama of it all. These cars are the stuff of posters on bedroom walls, the heroes of our childhood fantasies, a physical manifestation of a dream we were told was just out of reach. Why do we desire them so much? It's not just about getting from A to B. Any dreary hatchback can do that. The supercar is about the journey, but not in a sentimental, it's about the friends we made along the way sort of way. It's about the visceral, thrilling, slightly terrifying experience of commanding a machine that is always whispering in your ear, "Go on, push a little harder." It represents a rebellion against the practical, a two-fingered salute to the sensible. In a world governed by rules, regulations, and speed limits, the supercar is a slice of pure, unadulterated freedom. It's the ultimate toy for grown-ups who never really grew up, and frankly, why should they? Life is too short to drive boring cars. This deep-seated fascination is precisely what makes the world of supercars so exclusive, and let's be honest, so intimidating. It's a club with a very high price of admission. The keys to this kingdom are typically forged in gold and handed over in exchange for a sum of money that could buy a rather nice house, or perhaps a small island in a less fashionable part of the world. The manufacturers know this. They cultivate an aura of unattainability, producing limited numbers and charging prices that ensure only a select few can ever experience their creations. This exclusivity only fuels the fire of our desire, making the dream of ownership feel even more potent, more tantalizing, and for most of us, forever locked behind a showroom window. To understand the challenge we've set ourselves, we first need a benchmark. We need a hero car, a gold standard against which all other contenders, no matter how humble, must be measured. And in the world of modern supercars, the benchmark doesn't get much more golden or standard than a machine costing $500,000. What, you might ask, does $500,000 actually buy you? Well, it buys you a ticket to the absolute pinnacle of automotive engineering. It buys you a carbon fiber monocoque chassis, technology lifted directly from the bleeding edge of motorsport, and an engine that is less a mechanical device and more a work of furious metallic art. It is, in short, the very best that money can buy. Think of it, a brand new Ferrari, a McLaren, or perhaps a top-tier Lamborghini. These aren't just cars, they are statements of intent. They are designed by artists and engineered by geniuses with massive brains and presumably very little concern for budget constraints. Every surface, every stitch, every switch is obsessed over. The leather is sourced from cows that have lived a pampered, stress-free life on a specific Bavarian hillside. The carbon fiber is woven in a pattern so perfect it could be hung in a gallery. The sound system is tuned by acousticians who probably spend their weekends listening to the sound of a pin dropping in an empty concert hall. It is a world of absolute perfection, where compromise is a dirty word. This $500,000 machine comes with a promise of flawless performance. When you press the start button, it will erupt into life every single time. When you floor the accelerator, it will deliver a surge of power so immense it feels like it might just rearrange your internal organs. It will corner as if it's glued to the tarmac, brake with the force of hitting a brick wall, and cruise down the motorway with surprising civility. It comes with a full manufacturer's warranty. If a bulb blows, a nice man in a clean uniform will come and fix it for you, probably while offering you a complimentary espresso. It is the supercar experience with a safety net, a guarantee of sublime, trouble-free motoring. But here's the rub. Is that perfection, that sanitized, warranted, utterly reliable experience the whole story? Is it the only way to chase the supercar dream? For $500,000, you are buying certainty. You are buying the right to walk into a dealership, point at the shiniest thing on the floor, and drive away in a machine that is, by every objective measure, brilliant. It will be faster, safer, and more technologically advanced than almost anything else on the road. But does that price tag also buy you the most fun? Does it deliver the greatest adventure? That is the question that lies at the heart of our absurd and possibly very stupid challenge. And so, we arrive at the challenger, the plucky underdog. The automotive equivalent of a man turning up to a sword fight armed with a spoon. Our mission, and we have enthusiastically chosen to accept it, is to find a car that delivers the supercar experience for just $10,000. Not $100,000, not even $50,000, $10,000. That is the price of a perfectly respectable, nearly new city car. It's the price of a fancy family holiday. In the world of high-performance motoring, it is, to be blunt, a joke. It's a budget that should, by all rights, get you nothing more exciting than a rusty Mazda MX-5 with a leaky roof and an ominous knocking sound coming from the engine. But we are not looking for a rusty Mazda. We are on the hunt for a supercar. Something with a mid-engine layout, a ridiculous wedge shape, and a badge that, at some point in its life, commanded respect. We are diving headfirst into the murky, treacherous waters of the used car market's bargain basement. This is a world of classified ads with grainy photos, descriptions full of creative spelling, and sellers who might be geniuses, or they might be lunatics. It's a place where minor electrical fault can mean a blown fuse, or it can mean the car is prone to spontaneous combustion. It is, in essence, a massive, high-stakes gamble. The search for our $10,000 hero will be an adventure in itself. It will involve long drives to remote, muddy farms to look at a barn find that turns out to be more barn than find. It will involve tense phone calls with sellers who assure us the car is a future classic and that the puddle of oil underneath it is just sweating horsepower. We will be poking around wheel arches with a screwdriver, looking for rust and filler. We will be peering into engine bays that look like a spaghetti factory exploded. We are not just buying a car, we are buying a story, a history, and almost certainly, a long list of problems that the previous owner conveniently forgot to mention. This is the ultimate showdown. On one side, we have the $500,000 paragon of modern engineering. A faultless, magnificent machine that represents the very best the automotive industry can produce. It's backed by a warranty, packed with technology, and promises a sublime driving experience. On the other side, we have our $10,000 mystery machine. A car that was once somebody's dream, then somebody's headache, and is now our problem. It will have no warranty, questionable reliability, and technology that was cutting edge when mobile phones were the size of a house brick. The question is simple. Can a decades-old, dirt-cheap, forgotten hero possibly deliver a fraction of the thrill, the drama, and the pure, unadulterated joy of its $500,000 rival? Let the battle begin. The beginning of any truly terrible idea often starts with the quiet hum of a computer late at night. Our quest for a $10,000 supercar was no different. It began not in a gleaming showroom or a high-end auction house, but in the murky, infinite expanse of the internet's classified ad sections. This is the digital Wild West of the automotive world, a sprawling landscape of hope, despair, and catastrophic spelling errors. Here, every listing is a potential treasure chest, but most are Pandora's boxes filled with rust, electrical gremlins, and the lingering scent of broken dreams. The search criteria were simple yet absurdly optimistic. Supercar, exotic, sports, with a price filter cruelly capped at $10,000. The results were, as you might expect, a cavalcade of automotive misery. The first wave of offerings was a parade of sadness. There were countless replicas. Cars that promised the drama of a Lamborghini but were, underneath, a wheezing Pontiac Fiero that had been cruelly tortured with fiberglass. They had the right shape, sort of, if you squinted and stood very far away, but the panel gaps were wide enough to lose a small child in. The descriptions were always full of misplaced confidence, boasting of head-turning looks while conveniently omitting the fact that people were turning their heads in pity. We scrolled past endless ads for cars that were clearly just projects, sold in a million pieces with the cheerful assurance that all parts are there, just needs putting back together. A task, I imagined, that would be harder than assembling a flat-pack wardrobe in the dark. Then came the brave pills, as they are known in the trade. These were genuine, once-great exotic cars that had fallen on hard times. A Maserati Biturbo with an engine that sounded like a bag of spanners in a tumble dryer. A Lotus Esprit described as having characterful electronics, which is a polite way of saying the headlights only work when it rains on a Tuesday. These were cars that whispered seductive promises of pedigree and performance, but their maintenance records read like a horror story. Every photo seemed to feature a mysterious stain on the upholstery, or a warning light glowing defiantly on the dashboard. Buying one of these felt less like a purchase, and more like adopting a very expensive, very unreliable pet that exclusively drinks premium fuel. After hours of scrolling, a pattern emerged. The truly cheap supercars fell into three categories: the fakes, the basket cases, and the catastrophically complicated. The fakes were an insult to the very idea of a supercar. The basket cases required the skills of a master mechanic and the patience of a saint. The complicated ones, often grand tourers from the 80s and 90s, were technological marvels of their time, which meant that today, they were technological nightmares. Their complex V12 engines and primitive digital dashboards were time bombs waiting to go off, with repair bills that could easily eclipse the purchase price of the car itself. The digital haystack was vast, and the needle we were looking for seemed impossibly small, or perhaps it simply didn't exist. Frustrated with the digital search, we decided to take a more old-fashioned approach. So we ventured out into the physical world, to the forgotten backlots of used car dealerships. These are the graveyards where ambitious cars go to die, places where shiny forecourts give way to gravel patches and overgrown weeds. Here, tucked away behind rows of sensible family saloons and tired work vans, you can sometimes find the ghosts of supercars past. We found a Porsche 928, a technological titan of the 1980s, now just sitting with 4 flat tires and a film of green algae growing on its once gleaming paintwork. The salesman, a man whose suit was as tired as his inventory, assured us it was a simple fix and a sound investment, pointing to its pop-up headlights as if they were the pinnacle of modern technology. On another lot, crammed between a rusty Ford Transit and a forlorn-looking Caravan, sat an early Jaguar XJS. With its long bonnet and flying buttresses, it still possessed a certain faded glamour. It looked like a retired rock star who now spent his days drinking gin in a slightly damp seaside hotel. The interior smelled powerfully of leather and regret. When we asked to hear the engine, the salesman sighed, produced a key that looked like it could open a medieval castle, and turned it. The car responded with a series of mournful clicks, and then a profound, expensive-sounding silence. "Needs a new battery," he declared with a shrug, as if that was the only barrier standing between us and automotive glory. We knew better. That silence was the sound of a 5-figure engine rebuild. These encounters became a theme. We were not just looking at cars, we were unearthing automotive archaeology. Each vehicle had a story, usually a sad one. They were cars that had been loved, then tolerated, and finally abandoned. They had passed through a succession of owners, each one less capable or willing to deal with the escalating demands of a thoroughbred machine. The logbooks were filled with stamps from garages that no longer existed. The glove compartments contained cassette tapes of music that hadn't troubled the charts for 30 years. They were time capsules, reminders of an era when speed and style came with a hefty dose of mechanical fragility. It was a sobering experience, a lesson in how quickly the mighty can fall. The problem was clear. A car doesn't become a $10,000 supercar by being well-behaved and reliable. It gets there because it is scary. It's scary to buy, scary to own, and most of all, scary to fix. The cars we were finding were cheap for a reason. They were riddled with complex, bespoke parts that were now unobtainable. They required specialist knowledge that had long since retired or moved on to fixing more sensible things. We were searching for a hero, but all we were finding were tragedies. The dream of finding a diamond in the rough was beginning to feel foolish. We weren't just looking for a cheap car, we were looking for a miracle. Just as despair was beginning to set in, a new listing flickered onto the screen. It was different. The photos were clear, taken in the golden light of a late afternoon. The description was concise, grammatically correct, and devoid of the usual desperate hyperbole. It was for a car that was genuinely interesting, a machine that had the right credentials, a mid-engine layout, a wedge-shaped profile that screamed 1990s, and a badge that, while not from Maranello or Sant'Agata, had a real racing pedigree. The price was exactly on the money, $10,000, or near offer. It was located several hundred miles away, in a small, unheard-of village that sounded like it had been invented for a fairy tale. This was it. This had to be the one. A phone call was made. The owner on the other end of the line was not a shifty salesman or a delusional dreamer. He was an older gentleman who spoke with a quiet, calm authority. He explained he had owned the car for 15 years, that he had maintained it himself, and that he was only selling it because his joints weren't what they used to be, making it difficult to get in and out of the low-slung cockpit. He didn't make grand claims about its performance or investment potential. He simply said, "She's been a good old girl, but she needs to be driven." The honesty was disarming. It was a beacon of hope in a sea of suspicion. A plan was hatched. A long drive was to be undertaken. The journey itself became a pilgrimage. With every mile that clicked over on the odometer of our boring, reliable daily driver, the anticipation grew. We were driving towards a dream, a tangible link to the supercar fantasies of our youth. The conversation in the car was a mix of giddy excitement and nervous what-ifs. What if it was a rust bucket cleverly disguised by the flattering evening light? What if the owner's idea of maintained was simply washing it once a year? What if the good old girl had a terminal illness he wasn't telling us about? This is the emotional roller coaster of buying a cheap, old, exotic car. It's a journey fueled by blind optimism, a willful ignorance of the potential financial catastrophe that lies at the end of the road. As we turned off the motorway and onto winding country lanes, the landscape became more picturesque, and our hopes soared higher. The sat-nav guided us down a narrow track, past a babbling brook and a field of suspiciously fluffy sheep, before announcing, "You have arrived." We pulled up to a charming old cottage with a neatly kept garden and a large, tidy-looking workshop at the side. There was no sign of the car. Our hearts sank for a moment. Had we been duped? Was this an elaborate prank? Then, the workshop door rumbled open, and there it was, sitting under the fluorescent lights, looking even better than it had in the pictures. It was low, wide, and impossibly cool. The gamble suddenly felt very, very real. There it sat, our potential $10,000 hero. It was a Lotus Esprit S4, not just any Esprit, but the Peter Stevens-designed evolution of the original Giugiaro wedge, a shape that defined a generation. Its bright yellow paintwork was vibrant, a bold statement of intent. It was smaller in person than you'd imagine, more compact and purposeful. It wasn't perfect, of course. A closer inspection revealed a few stone chips on the nose, a small crack in a rear light lens, and an interior that showed the gentle patina of 3 decades of use. But it was honest. There was no fresh paint hiding shoddy repairs, no cheap aftermarket parts bolted on. It was a genuine, well-loved survivor. The owner, a kindly man named Arthur, watched us circle the car with a knowing smile. Arthur handed us a thick folder of paperwork. It was a history file, a bible of receipts, invoices, and old MOT certificates that documented the car's life. This folder is the single most important part of any old supercar. It tells you everything. It tells you that the Campbell was changed on time, that the expensive suspension components were replaced, and that the strange noise in 2007 was properly investigated and not just ignored. Arthur had done most of the work himself, and his handwritten notes were meticulous. He had cherished this car, not as a financial asset, but as a piece of engineering to be understood and cared for. This wasn't just a car, it was his pride and joy, and he was interviewing us to see if we were worthy of taking over its care. Then came the moment of truth. "Would you like to hear her run?" Arthur asked. He slid into the driver's seat, turned the key, and the small workshop filled with the sound of a fuel pump priming, followed by a series of clicks and whirs. Then, the 2.2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine coughed into life with a gruff, purposeful bark. It wasn't the operatic wail of a V12, but it was a raw, mechanical, and deeply exciting sound. It settled into a slightly lumpy idle, each combustion cycle a tangible event. This was an engine with character, a world away from the synthesized, digitally perfected engine notes of modern performance cars. It smelled faintly of petrol and hot oil, the authentic perfume of a classic sports car. Arthur let the engine warm up, his hand resting on the gear lever, his eyes flicking over the gauges. "The oil pressure is good," he noted, more to himself than to us. He gave the throttle a gentle blip, and the engine responded instantly with a sharp rasp, the wastegate of the turbocharger chirping on the overrun. It was everything we had hoped for. The car was real, it ran, and it sounded magnificent. The risks were still enormous. It was still a 30-year-old hand-built British sports car. It could still bankrupt us with a single catastrophic failure. But in that moment, standing in a small workshop in the middle of nowhere, listening to that engine, none of that mattered. We had found our challenger. The gamble was on. To properly understand our 10,000-pound gamble, we first needed to experience the other end of the spectrum, the benchmark, the big cheese. And so, we went to collect our $500,000 supercar. This isn't a transaction that happens on a muddy farm. It happens in a building that looks less like a car dealership and more like an art gallery or the headquarters of a sinister corporation from a Bond film. Glass walls, polished concrete floors, and lighting so perfect it could make even me look vaguely presentable. The air hums with quiet efficiency and the faint, expensive scent of new leather and ambition. You don't just buy a car here, you are inducted into a very exclusive club. The handover process is pure theater. A smartly dressed individual, let's call him Julian, glides towards you with a smile that is both warm and professionally calculated. Julian doesn't sell cars, he curates automotive experiences. He offers you an espresso served in a tiny cup with no handle, a drink designed to make you feel sophisticated and slightly clumsy. He then leads you not to a car, but to a private room where your new machine sits under a silk cover. There is a dramatic pause, a moment of hushed reverence before Julian pulls a small cord and the silk glides away, revealing the metallic masterpiece beneath. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated automotive pornography. Our chosen weapon was a brand new Ferrari 296 GTB, and my word, it was perfect. The paintwork was so deep you felt you could dive into it. Every panel lined up with a precision that would make a Swiss watchmaker weep with joy. There wasn't a speck of dust, not a single fingerprint to mar its flawless crimson skin. Julian walked us around the car, pointing out features with the hushed tones of a museum curator. He explained the intricacies of the hybrid V6 powertrain, the genius of the active aerodynamics, and the function of the 27 different buttons on the steering wheel. It was an overwhelming torrent of technological brilliance, a demonstration of what is possible when money is no object. Getting into the Ferrari is an event. The door opens with a satisfyingly expensive thud. You slide into a seat that grips you like a firm, reassuring hug. The smell is intoxicating, a blend of hand-stitched leather and carbon fiber. Everything you touch feels solid, purposeful, and ruinously expensive. Before you're allowed to even think about the start button, Julian spends another 20 minutes explaining the infotainment system, the various driving modes, and how to operate the satellite navigation. It is a comprehensive, professional, and slightly sterile experience. This is not a car, it is a meticulously crafted product delivered with flawless service. It's brilliant, but you can't help but feel a little detached, like you're admiring it from behind a velvet rope. And now, for the other side of the coin. The collection of our $10,000 Lotus Esprit was, shall we say, a slightly different affair. There was no silk sheet, no espresso, and certainly no Julian. There was just Arthur, a handshake that felt like it had fixed 1,000 lawnmowers, and a slightly crumpled V5C logbook. The transaction was completed with a bank transfer that made my phone's banking app send me a concerned fraud alert. With the paperwork done, Arthur handed over a small, surprisingly plain key. "There you go," he said with a paternal pat on the car's fiberglass roof. "Look after her." And just like that, we were the proud and terrified owners of a bright yellow 30-year-old British supercar. The first surprise was just how raw and elemental the Esprit felt, even when stationary. Standing next to it, you could see the hand-built nature of the thing. The panel gaps, while respectable, were not laser-perfect like the Ferraris. You could spot the slight imperfections in the fiberglass body, these subtle signs that this car was put together by people, not robots. It had a tangible human quality to it. It felt less like a product and more like a passion project. Whereas the Ferrari was a flawless sculpture, the Lotus was a charming, slightly flawed character. It had lived a life, and its minor scars and blemishes were part of its story, not defects to be polished away. Walking around the car without Arthur's supervision felt like a proper inspection. We were now looking at it not as a potential purchase, but as our problem. The stone chips on the front suddenly looked deeper. The crack in the rear light lens seemed to mock us, whispering of future MOT failures. We opened the front luggage compartment, the frunk, to find a space barely large enough for a briefcase, which it shared with the brake fluid reservoir and a space-saver spare wheel that looked about as useful as a chocolate teapot. This was a car designed with a singular focus on driving, and practical considerations like carrying things were clearly an afterthought, probably dismissed during a tea break at the factory in Hethel. Then there was the engine bay. Lifting the rear cover revealed the 2.2-liter turbocharged heart of the beast. Unlike the Ferrari's engine, which is displayed under glass like a crown jewel, the Lotus's engine was just there. It was a dense tangle of pipes, wires, and mechanical bits all crammed into a tight space. It looked intimidatingly complex, a puzzle that only a specialist could solve. You could see the signs of Arthur's careful maintenance, clean hoses, no obvious leaks, but you could also see the potential for 1,000 different things to go wrong. This was the reality of our $10,000 gamble, laid bare in all its oily, complicated glory. The honeymoon period was over before it had even begun. Sliding into the cockpit of the Ferrari is like entering a spaceship. You are immediately confronted by a dazzling array of screens and lights. The main instrument binnacle is a vast, digital display, configurable in a dozen different ways. The steering wheel itself is a masterpiece of complexity, festooned with buttons, dials and switches that control everything from the indicators and wipers to the suspension settings and the all-important Manettino drive mode selector. It's incredibly impressive, a testament to the digital age, yet it's also slightly bewildering. You feel less like a driver and more like an IT technician trying to get a new printer to work. It demands your full attention before you've even moved an inch. The materials are of course beyond reproach. Sumptuous leather, cold, hard aluminum, and acres of glossy carbon fiber. Every surface feels engineered to within an inch of its life. The seats are electrically adjustable in 16 different directions, ensuring you can find the perfect driving position, even if it takes you half an hour to do so. The climate control works with silent, ruthless efficiency, and the sound system is probably better than the one in my house. It is a cabin of immense quality and technological prowess. It's a comfortable, cosseting, and slightly intimidating place to sit. A world of digital perfection that isolates you from the harsh realities of the outside world. Now, the Lotus. Getting into the Esprit is less of a slide and more of a controlled fall. The door sills are incredibly wide and the seating position is so low you feel like you're sitting on the tarmac itself. Once inside, the contrast with the Ferrari is staggering. There are no screens, there is no carbon fiber. Instead, you are greeted by a cliff face of a dashboard, covered in slightly shiny 1990s plastic and populated by a charmingly random assortment of gauges, buttons, and switches, sourced from the parts bin of lesser cars. The speedometer and rev counter are simple, analog dials with big, friendly numbers. It's a cabin from another era, a time before touchscreens and submenus. The smell is different too. It's not the sanitized scent of new leather, it's the rich, musty perfume of old leather, old carpets, and just a faint hint of 30 years of British motoring. The driving position is committed. The pedals are offset to one side, forcing your legs into a slightly unnatural position. The steering wheel is a simple, three-spoke affair with no buttons on it whatsoever. Its only job is to steer the car. The whole environment feels incredibly focused. It's not trying to be a luxury car or a tech showcase. It is, unapologetically, a sports car cockpit, and it makes no excuses for its single-mindedness. It's dated, it's a bit cramped, but it feels wonderfully, refreshingly simple. Okay, so, the moment of truth in the $500,000 Ferrari is pressing the big red engine start button on the steering wheel. There is no fumbling with a key, you just press it, and the car takes care of the rest. The digital dashboard springs to life with an elaborate animation. You hear the whir of fuel pumps and the click of relays, and then, with a theatrical flair, The V6 engine erupts into life. It's not a crude explosion of noise, it's a cultured, engineered bark that quickly settles into a smooth, stable, and surprisingly quiet idle. It's a dramatic, yet perfectly controlled event. It's a clear signal that a monstrous amount of power is on standby, waiting patiently for your command. There is a sense of immense potential but no immediate threat. Inside the cabin, with the doors closed, the sound is muted, a distant hum of immense capability. You can select drive with a simple pull of a paddle, and the car creeps forward with the ease of a normal automatic. There is no drama, no fuss, no intimidation. The Ferrari does everything it can to make its incredible performance accessible and manageable. It's a gentle giant, at least for now. It feels utterly dependable, a machine that will start and perform flawlessly every single time, whether it's a cold winter morning or a blistering summer afternoon. It's the confidence that $500,000 buys you. Starting the Lotus is a completely different ritual. First, you have to actually insert the key into an ignition barrel on the steering column. How quaint, right? You turn it one click, and the dashboard lights flicker on, some brighter than others. You pause, listening for the buzz of the fuel pump, a sound that tells you a vital part of the process is working. You give the accelerator a little pump, a habit from a bygone era of carburetors, even though this car is fuel injected. Then you turn the key the rest of the way. The starter motor churns, slowly at first, as if waking from a long slumber. For a split second you wonder if it's going to catch. Then it fires, not with a clean bark but with a grumpy, lumpy cough, as if it's clearing its throat. The whole car shudders as the engine catches and the cabin fills with a raw, mechanical clatter. The idle is uneven, hunting up and down as the primitive engine management system figures out what's going on. You can feel every vibration through the seat, the floor, and the steering wheel. It's not a refined experience, it's a visceral one. It feels alive, temperamental, and slightly fragile. Every successful start feels like a small victory, a moment of triumph over mechanical uncertainty. It's a reminder that you are not just operating a machine, you are collaborating with it. The first few miles in the Ferrari are deceptively easy. Pulling away from the dealership and into normal traffic, the car is astonishingly docile. The dual-clutch gearbox shifts with imperceptible speed and smoothness. The steering is light, the visibility is surprisingly decent, and the ride, in its softest setting, is more comfortable than many family saloons. You could, if you were so inclined, use this car to pop to the shops. The only real source of anxiety is its width. It feels enormous, and every narrow gap, every passing bus, and every curb becomes a source of heart-stopping terror. The thought of scratching one of those multi-thousand-dollar carbon fiber wing mirrors is enough to bring you out in a cold sweat. The other source of stress is the attention. The Ferrari is not a car for shrinking violets. Everyone, and I mean everyone, stares at you. People point, they take photos, they tailgate you just to get a better look. You feel like a celebrity who has forgotten to put their trousers on. It's exciting for the first 5 minutes, but it quickly becomes wearing. You are constantly aware of the car's value and the image it projects. It's a strange kind of pressure, the pressure to live up to the car. Driving slowly in a Ferrari feels faintly ridiculous, like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. You feel a constant urge to unleash its power, just to prove it's not all for show. Driving the Lotus away from Arthur's cottage was an exercise in pure mechanical sympathy. The first challenge is the clutch. It's heavy, seriously heavy. It feels like you're doing a leg press at the gym with every gear change. The gear linkage is famously vague. Finding first gear is less of a precise action and more of a hopeful negotiation with the gearbox. The steering, unassisted at low speeds, requires genuine muscle to turn. There is no gentle creeping forward here. Every maneuver is a conscious effort, a physical act that connects you directly to the machinery. It is, in short, a proper workout. The anxiety in the Lotus is of a different, more internal kind. You're not worried about what other people think. You're worried about what the car is thinking. Every strange noise, every flicker of a gauge, every new smell sends a jolt of panic through your nervous system. Is that a normal clunk, or is the gearbox about to explode? Was that a whiff of coolant, or just the car in front? You drive with your ears wide open, constantly monitoring the car's health, praying that the previous owner's meticulous care will hold up. It's an intensely engaging if nerve-wracking experience. It demands your absolute undivided attention, even at 20 miles per hour. There is no purer test of a supercar's character than a straight-line drag race. It is the automotive equivalent of an arm wrestle, a simple, brutal measure of power and traction. We found a deserted runway, a long, wide strip of tarmac perfect for our purposes. First up, the $500,000 Ferrari 296 GTB. To engage its launch control is to interact with a NASA-grade system. You press a button here, pull a paddle there, and a message appears on the digital dash, launch control active. It's all very calm and clinical. You hold the brake with your left foot, flatten the accelerator with your right, and the hybrid V6 powertrain holds its revs, poised and ready, humming with a barely contained fury. It feels like you're holding back a hurricane with a piece of string. When you release the brake, all hell does not break loose. Instead, something far more terrifying happens. The car just goes. There's no wheel spin, no theatrical squirming, just a relentless, seamless, and utterly brutal surge of acceleration. The computers manage everything with ruthless efficiency, deploying the combined 819 horsepower from the petrol engine and electric motor with a logic so perfect it feels alien. Your head is pinned back against the headrest, the world outside blurs into a meaningless streak of color, and the digital speedometer struggles to keep up. It is a violent yet completely controlled experience. It's less like driving a car and more like being fired from a gigantic silent cannon. It is mind-bendingly, soul-alteringly fast. Now for the Lotus. There is no launch control here. The launch control is your left foot and your right hand. The process is far more agricultural. You build the revs, listening to the four-cylinder turbo engine scream, feeling the whole car vibrate around you. You try to find the biting point of the heavy clutch, a delicate balancing act between bogging down and incinerating the clutch plate in a cloud of expensive smoke. Your heart pounds in your chest, not just from the noise and the anticipation, but from the very real fear that a drive shaft might decide to snap and make a bid for freedom through the fiberglass bodywork. This is not a clinical procedure. It's a frantic, sweaty-palmed gamble. When you drop the clutch, the Esprit explodes off the line with a scrabble of wheel spin and a frantic wiggle of the rear end. You have to be quick with the steering to keep it pointing straight, and even quicker with the gear changes. The turbo takes a moment to wake up, a brief pause of turbo lag, and then, whoosh, a massive wave of boost kicks you in the back. The acceleration is not seamless, it's a series of frantic, exhilarating punches. It's a raw, noisy, and deeply involving process. It isn't nearly as fast as the Ferrari, not by a long shot, but the sense of personal achievement of having personally tamed this wild bucking machine is immense. It's not just fast, it's a full-body workout. A supercar isn't just about going fast in a straight line, it has to dance. It has to devour corners with the same voracious appetite it has for straights. On the twisting curves of our test track, the Ferrari was nothing short of a revelation. Its steering is hyper-quick, almost telepathic. You don't turn the wheel so much as think about turning, and the nose of the car darts towards the apex with an immediacy that, honestly, beggars belief. The grip is simply immense. You can carry speeds through corners that feel utterly irresponsible, yet the car remains flat, composed, and completely unbothered. It feels like it's generating its own gravity, bending the laws of physics to its will. The sheer amount of technology at play is staggering. The clever E-differential, the side-slip control system, the active aerodynamics, they all work in silent harmony to make you, the driver, look like a hero. You can get on the power ridiculously early out of a corner, and the computers will sort it all out, trimming the power here, braking a wheel there, to keep you on the tarmac and pointing in the right direction. It is an incredible safety net that allows you to explore the car's limits with a confidence that borders on arrogance. The Ferrari makes you feel like a driving god, even if all you're really doing is holding on while the car's massive electronic brain does all the clever stuff. Then you climb out of the Ferrari, your brain still buzzing with digital perfection, and get into the Lotus. The experience could not be more different. There are no driver aids here. There is no clever differential, no stability control, no safety net. There is just you, a steering wheel, 3 pedals, and your own very limited talent. The steering is much slower than the Ferrari's, but it is dripping with feedback. You can feel every nuance of the road surface, every little ripple and camber, transmitted directly to your fingertips. It's a constant, detailed conversation about exactly how much grip the front tires have left. It's a sensation that has been almost completely engineered out of modern cars. Through the corners, The Esprit feels light and wonderfully balanced. It doesn't have the outright grip of the Ferrari, not even close. You have to be patient, to brake in a straight line, to turn in smoothly, and to wait before you get back on the power. Get it wrong, be too greedy with the throttle, and the rear end will snap sideways with very little warning. It demands respect and concentration. It forces you to learn, to understand the fundamentals of car control, to become a better driver. It doesn't flatter you like the Ferrari does, it challenges you. Every clean, fast corner you execute feels like a genuine triumph, a victory earned through skill and instinct, not silicon chips. Making a car go fast is only half the battle. Making it stop is arguably the more important and certainly the more terrifying part of the equation. The Ferrari 296 GTB is fitted with enormous carbon ceramic brakes. These are not just brakes, they are anchors. At the end of the long runway hurtling along at a speed that would get you arrested in every country on Earth, you hit the brake pedal. For a split second, nothing seems to happen. Then, it feels as though the car has driven into a giant invisible pillow. The deceleration is savage. Your seatbelt digs into your shoulder, your eyeballs feel like they're trying to escape through the windscreen, and the car simply stops. Now, the pedal feel is firm and incredibly consistent. You can brake from maximum speed time and time again, and the performance never wavers. There is no fade, no drama, just immense repeatable stopping power. It gives you an almost ludicrous amount of confidence. You find yourself braking later and later for corners, trusting implicitly that these magnificent, ruinously expensive discs and calipers will shed the speed without any fuss. It's a crucial part of the Ferrari's performance envelope, the unbreakable promise that no matter how fast you go, the car has the power to bring it all to a safe, controlled halt. It is a technological marvel, and a massive source of reassurance when you have 819 horsepower under your right foot. And now, the Lotus. Its brakes are, by comparison, the size of tea saucers. They are conventional steel discs, with calipers that look like they might have been borrowed from a family saloon. After a high-speed run down the straight, the moment comes to hit what my colleague James May would call the stop pedal. You press it hard, and the car does begin to slow down, but without the neck-snapping violence of the Ferrari. It's a far more gradual process. You can feel the pads biting into the discs, you can feel the heat building, and you can feel the system working at its absolute limit. The car wiggles a little under the heavy braking, demanding small corrections at the steering wheel. After 2 or 3 hard stops, a new and exciting phenomenon enters the equation: brake fade. The pedal, which was once firm, starts to feel a bit soft and spongy. The car takes noticeably longer to slow down. This is the brake's way of politely telling you that they have had enough and would like to have a little rest now. Thank you very much. It completely changes your approach to driving. You can no longer rely on the brakes to get you out of trouble. You have to think ahead, to brake earlier, to manage the energy and the heat. It's another layer of involvement, another challenge to be overcome. It's terrifying, yes, but it also keeps you wonderfully focused. The soundtrack of a supercar is at least 50% of the experience. It's the noise that turns heads, the noise that stirs the soul. The Ferrari's V6 engine, with its unusual 120-degree hot V layout, has been meticulously tuned to sound spectacular. At low revs, it's a deep, resonant hum. As you climb the rev range, the note hardens, becoming a crisp, motorsport-inspired bark. And as you approach the 8,500 RPM redline, it transforms into a searing, high-pitched scream that sounds like a deranged Formula One car from a bygone era. It is a masterpiece of acoustic engineering, a symphony of internal combustion that has been polished and perfected in a sound lab. The experience is enhanced by a series of pops and bangs from the exhaust on the overrun, all perfectly programmed by the engine software. It's pure theater. When you pull a paddle for an upshift at full throttle, there's an audible crack as the next gear engages. It's a noise designed to make you feel like a racing driver, a carefully curated sonic experience that is thrilling, dramatic, and utterly addictive. It is, however, a performance. It's a sound that has been deliberately created and amplified for your entertainment. It's brilliant, but you can't help but feel that it's a little too perfect, a little too polished, like a rock album that has been overproduced in the studio. The Lotus, on the other hand, does not have a soundtrack. It has a noise. It is the unfiltered, unedited, completely honest sound of a small, highly stressed engine working its heart out. At idle, it's a lumpy, mechanical clatter. As you pull away, you hear the whir of the timing belt, the chatter of the gearbox, and the hiss of the air being sucked into the engine. Then, as the revs build and the turbocharger starts to spin, the character changes completely. You hear the whistle of the turbo spooling up, a sound like an industrial vacuum cleaner having an asthma attack, followed by the distinctive whoosh from the wastegate when you lift off the throttle. It is not a conventionally beautiful noise. It will not win any awards for musicality. It is a raw, guttural, and deeply mechanical roar. It's the sound of work being done, of air being compressed, of fuel and air being violently ignited. You don't just hear the Lotus's engine, you feel it. It's an authentic analog sound that tells you exactly what is happening under the engine cover. It's the honest noise of a 1990s performance car, full of whistles, chirps, and rumbles that modern cars have carefully filtered out. It might not be a symphony, but it's a raw and exhilarating rock and roll concert being performed just behind your head. The ultimate test for any British sports car is not the racetrack or the runway, but a classic British B road. These are the narrow, bumpy, and unpredictable ribbons of tarmac that crisscross our countryside. On these roads, the Ferrari is, frankly, overkill. It is simply too wide and too fast. You spend most of your time terrified of meeting a tractor coming the other way. Every blind crest is a heart-and-mouth moment. The car's incredible performance is largely unusable. You can only deploy its power in tiny, frantic bursts before you have to slam on the magnificent brakes for the next corner. It feels like a caged lion, pacing back and forth, frustrated and angry. The ride, even in the softest setting, is firm on a properly broken surface. The car gets thrown around by bumps and cambers, and the ultra-quick steering requires constant small corrections to keep it on track. It demands immense concentration, not because you're exploring the limits of grip, but because you're trying to thread a $500,000 missile through a space that feels far too small for it. It's an impressive machine, no doubt, but on a real-world road at real-world speeds, it's actually quite a stressful and slightly joyless experience. You're more focused on self-preservation and avoiding expensive damage than you are on actually enjoying the drive. The Lotus, however, comes alive on these roads. It is significantly narrower than the Ferrari, which immediately inspires confidence. You have more room to breathe, more space to place the car accurately on the road. The softer suspension, which felt a bit wayward on the track, is perfectly suited to the bumpy tarmac. The car flows with the road, absorbing imperfections rather than crashing over them. The slower steering, which was a drawback on the track, now feels perfectly weighted and natural. You can build a wonderful rhythm, linking corners together in a smooth, satisfying dance. It is, in short, in its element. Because the Esprit has less outright power and grip, you can actually use more of its performance more of the time. You can work the engine hard, rowing through the gears, keeping the turbo on the boil, all without reaching speeds that will instantly land you in jail. The car communicates with you constantly, telling you exactly what it's doing. You feel utterly connected to the experience, a core component of the process rather than a mere passenger. On a tight, twisting B road, the 30-year-old $10,000 underdog was, without a shadow of a doubt, the more engaging, more rewarding, and ultimately the more fun car to drive. And that, I can tell you, was a genuine surprise. Living with a supercar is not just about the driving, it's about the upkeep. And the upkeep on a $500,000 Ferrari is a masterclass in eye-watering expense. The car comes with a multi-year maintenance plan, which sounds wonderfully reassuring until you realize it's just a way of softening the initial blow. When the time for the first scheduled service arrives, you don't just pop down to your local garage. Oh no. You must return to the glass-walled temple where you bought it, where the mechanics wear white lab coats and the tools are probably made of titanium. The car is whisked away into a workshop cleaner than a hospital operating theater, and you are left to sip another tiny espresso while contemplating your life choices. The service itself is a work of meticulous, expensive art. The technicians plug the car into a diagnostic machine that communicates directly with the mothership in Maranello. They change the oil, which is a special blend of refined unicorn tears and liquid gold, and it costs more per liter than a vintage champagne. They replace the filters, check the tire pressures, and run a 190-point check that covers everything from the stitching on the leather to the alignment of the active aerodynamic flaps. Nothing is left to chance. It is a process designed to maintain the car in a state of absolute flawless perfection, ensuring it performs exactly as the engineers intended every single time. Then comes the bill. Even for a routine service covered by the plan, you see the itemized costs, and it's enough to make your wallet cry. A single oil filter can cost what you'd pay for a full service on a normal car. Should anything fall outside the warranty, a stone-chipped windscreen, a scuffed alloy wheel, the costs are astronomical. A new carbon ceramic brake disc isn't hundreds of pounds, it's thousands, plural. The price of a replacement front bumper would buy you a very nice brand new hatchback. This is the price of perfection. It's the cost of maintaining a machine built with zero compromise, using materials and technology from the very pinnacle of the automotive world. This constant underlying fear of a massive bill changes your relationship with the car. Every pothole you fail to avoid sends a shiver of financial dread down your spine. You park it miles away from other cars in the supermarket car park, terrified of a stray trolley or a carelessly opened door. You become obsessive, a curator of a museum piece rather than the owner of a car meant to be driven and enjoyed. The Ferrari's brilliance is undeniable, but it's a high-maintenance brilliance. It demands not just your skill as a driver but a significant and continuous financial commitment to keep it in the manner to which it has become accustomed. Living with the $10,000 Lotus Esprit is an entirely different kind of financial anxiety. It's not the certainty of large, scheduled bills that gets you, it's the uncertainty of what will break next, and when. The Esprit doesn't go wrong in a planned, orderly fashion, it goes wrong with a sudden, dramatic flare, usually at the most inconvenient moment possible. One day, the electric window might decide to stop working halfway down, just as it starts to rain. The next, a headlight will refuse to pop up, leaving the car winking at oncoming traffic like a drunken pirate. These aren't major catastrophes, they are just the characterful quirks of a hand-built British sports car. The fear of a big failure, however, is ever present. Every drive is a mechanical lottery. You become attuned to the car's symphony of noises and you learn to distinguish the normal, healthy clunks and whirs from the new, expensive-sounding ones. A slight change in the engine note, a new vibration through the floor, a whiff of a strange smell. These are all clues in an ongoing detective story. The prime suspect is always the turbocharger, or the gearbox, or the head gasket. These are the big-ticket items, the potential failures that could instantly turn your $10,000 bargain into a very pretty, very yellow garden ornament. It is a nerve-wracking way to live. The upside to this, if you can call it that, is the world you are forced to enter. You can't just take an old Esprit to a main dealer, you have to find the specialists. These are the wise old wizards who operate out of small cluttered workshops, men who have dedicated their lives to keeping these magnificent, fragile machines on the road. You join online forums, communities of fellow sufferers who share advice, part numbers, and stories of their own roadside tragedies. You learn, you have to. You learn how to diagnose a faulty relay, where to source a rare piece of interior trim, and which Jubilee clip is most likely to fail next. Owning the Lotus is not a passive experience, it's an active, hands-on relationship. It forces you to become part of the car's story, to understand its weaknesses and how to fix them. The bills are still there, of course. Parts can be rare and surprisingly pricey, but they are a fraction of the Ferrari's costs. And when you do fix something, when you solve a problem that has been bugging you for weeks, the sense of satisfaction is immense. It's a bond forged in oil, sweat, and mild panic. It's a relationship built on a foundation of constant low-level fear, punctuated by moments of pure, unadulterated triumph. A true test of a car's livability is the mundane, everyday journey. The trip to the supermarket, for instance. In the Ferrari, this is an exercise in absurdity. You arrive at the car park and the first problem is the speed bumps. They must be navigated with extreme prejudice, crawling over them at an angle to avoid scraping the ruinously expensive carbon fiber splitter on the front. Then you have to find a parking space. As we've discussed, this means parking in the furthest, most remote corner of the car park, which means a long walk back with your shopping. And what do you do with that shopping? The Ferrari's front luggage compartment is barely big enough for a single bag of quinoa and a bottle of artisan water. The journey itself is effortless from a mechanical point of view. The automatic gearbox, the light steering, the comfortable seats, it's all very civilized. But it's the social aspect that's draining. Everyone stares. Teenagers film you on their phones. Other drivers either try to race you or cut you up out of sheer resentment. You can't just blend in. A trip to buy a pint of milk becomes a public performance, a rolling spectacle. You feel self-conscious, ostentatious, and frankly a bit silly. The Ferrari is a magnificent tool for crossing continents or demolishing a racetrack, but for the daily grind, it is simply the wrong tool for the job. The Lotus, surprisingly, is slightly better at this. Yes, it's a physical workout, the heavy clutch is a pain in traffic, the unassisted steering is hard work when parking, and the visibility out of the back is dreadful. But it has a secret weapon, it's just a car. People look, of course, it's a bright yellow wedge, but it doesn't attract the same kind of intense, sometimes negative attention as the Ferrari. It gets smiles, thumbs up, and nods of appreciation from people who recognize it from their childhood. It's seen as a cool classic, not a statement of immense wealth. It allows you to fly a little further under the radar. And when it comes to the shopping, the Lotus has an ace up its sleeve. Because the engine is in the middle, it has not just a frunk but a proper boot at the back as well. It's not enormous, but you can fit a couple of bags of groceries in there without any trouble. The challenge, of course, is that the boot is located directly above the exhaust system. This means that if your journey home is a spirited one, your milk will be warm, your ice cream will be soup, and your frozen peas will be, well, mushy peas. It's not perfect, but it is, in its own quirky way, a surprisingly practical machine for the occasional errand. Both of these cars are head-turners, but they attract entirely different kinds of attention. Parking the Ferrari in a public place is like setting up a pop-up celebrity meet and greet. Within minutes, a crowd forms. It is a crowd of phone cameras, of people taking selfies from every conceivable angle. They rarely want to talk to you, the driver. They are there for the object, the symbol. They want to capture a piece of its celebrity, to get a photo for their Instagram feed. The questions you do get are almost always the same. How fast is it? And how much did it cost? It's an interaction based on numbers, on shock value. The attention feels superficial, focused on the car as a status symbol. There's an undercurrent of awe but also of envy and sometimes outright hostility. You get the sense that some people are not admiring it but judging you for owning it. It's a car that creates a barrier between you and the rest of the world. It's an amazing piece of machinery, but the social bubble it creates can be an uncomfortable and isolating place to be. You are no longer a person. You are the anonymous figure behind the wheel of that Ferrari. It's an experience that is exciting at first, but it quickly becomes tiresome. The Lotus, on the other hand, is a conversation starter. It draws a different kind of crowd. It's usually a smaller, more discerning group of people. They are not there for a selfie, they are there for the story. They are people who had a poster of this car on their wall as a kid. They are people who remember seeing it in a James Bond film. They don't ask how much it cost. They ask, is it a nightmare to work on, or what's the turbo lag like? They want to share their own memories, to connect with a piece of their own automotive history. The interactions are genuine, friendly, and born from a shared passion for cars. It's a social icebreaker. You find yourself having long, happy conversations with complete strangers in petrol stations and car parks. They don't see a status symbol. They see a cool, interesting piece of history being kept alive. The Lotus doesn't create a barrier, it builds a bridge. It connects you to a community of like-minded enthusiasts. The attention it gets is warmer, more personal, and infinitely more rewarding. It's the kind of attention that reminds you why you fell in love with cars in the first place. After several months of living with both cars, it was time for a cold, hard look at the numbers. It was time to perform a financial autopsy on our two very different supercar dreams. The Ferrari, despite being covered by a warranty and a service plan, had still managed to cost a staggering amount of money. The main culprit was depreciation. A new supercar, even a Ferrari, loses a huge chunk of its value the moment it leaves the showroom. In just a few months, the car had lost more in value than the entire purchase price of the Lotus. It is a brutal, invisible cost that people often forget. Then there are the running costs that fall outside the service plan. Insurance for a $500,000 supercar is, as you can imagine, breathtakingly expensive. It requires specialist cover that costs as much as a small family car every year. The fuel consumption, when driven with any kind of enthusiasm, is comical. And then there are the tires. The huge bespoke slabs of rubber on the Ferrari cost a fortune to replace, and with 819 horsepower they do not last long. When you add it all up, depreciation, insurance, fuel, and consumables, the cost of running the Ferrari for just a short period is enough to fund a multi-year space program for a small nation. The Lotus, meanwhile, presented a very different financial picture. The initial outlay was, of course, 50 times smaller. The depreciation was negligible. In fact, as a desirable classic, it was more likely to slowly appreciate in value if kept in good condition. Insurance was a pleasant surprise. Specialist classic car policies are remarkably affordable, a fraction of the Ferrari's premium. Fuel consumption was almost sensible for a supercar. The real costs came from the inevitable repairs. Over our ownership, it needed a new alternator, a full set of coolant hoses to be safe, and a mysterious electrical fault that took a specialist 2 days to trace to a corroded earth strap. When we tallied up the bills, the Lotus had certainly cost money to keep on the road. There were moments of financial pain, of cursing its British engineering while writing a check, but the total cost, purchase price, repairs, insurance, and running costs combined, was a mere fraction of the Ferrari's depreciation alone. The lesson was stark. The $500,000 dream comes with a $500,000 running cost. The $10,000 dream, while not free, is a far more attainable, far more manageable proposition. It proves that the financial barrier to entry is not the only hurdle. It's the cost of staying in the game that really counts. So here we are at the end of a long, expensive, and occasionally terrifying road. We have pitted a brand new $500,000 Italian thoroughbred against a 30-year-old $10,000 British underdog. We've compared them on the track, on the road, and yeah, even in the harsh reality of the supermarket car park, we've lived with their bills, their quirks, and their ability to, well, draw a crowd. The time has come to answer the simple yet profound question we set out with. Which one is better? Which one offers the best value, the most fun, and the truest supercar experience? It's a battle between the head and the heart, between flawless perfection and flawed character. The head, my sensible, rational, accountant-like head, screams that the Ferrari 296 GTB is the winner. It is, by every single objective measure, a superior machine. It's faster, safer, more comfortable, more reliable, and honestly packed with more technology than a lunar landing module. It's an astonishing feat of engineering, a testament to what humanity can achieve when it puts its mind to the problem of going very, very fast. It will start every morning. It will never leak oil on your driveway. It will flatter your driving, making you feel like a racing hero, while its silent computers save you from your own incompetence. It is, in every quantifiable way, the perfect supercar. But my heart, my silly, irrational, oil-stained heart, tells a different story. The Ferrari is perfect, but its perfection comes at a price. And I don't just mean the astronomical cost. Its competence is so absolute that it can feel remote, sterile. You are a passenger on a roller coaster of its own making. The Lotus Esprit, on the other hand, is a deeply imperfect machine. It's fragile, it's temperamental, and it's full of compromises. It has weird ergonomics, a heavy clutch, and brakes that give up when the going gets tough. But it's these very flaws that make it so compelling. It needs you. It demands your attention, your skill, and your mechanical sympathy. And so, the final verdict. If you have $500,000 and you want the fastest, most capable, and most impressive supercar that money can buy, the Ferrari is your car. It is a stunning achievement. But if you want the most fun, if you want an adventure, if you want a relationship with a machine that will challenge you, reward you, and create stories you'll tell for the rest of your life, then the answer, unbelievably, is the 10,000-pound Lotus. It delivers more smiles per mile, more genuine thrills, and a greater sense of accomplishment than its $500,000 rival. It is the winner, not by a knockout, but by a points decision, awarded for sheer heart and soul. This whole ridiculous experiment has honestly forced me to reconsider what a supercar really is. For years we've been told that the definition is a set of numbers. It's about horsepower, 0 to 60 times, top speeds, and Nürburgring lap times. It's a relentless arms race, a competition to see who can build the most extreme, the most powerful, and the most expensive machine. The Ferrari 296 GTB is, without a doubt, the very embodiment of this philosophy. It's a car defined by its incredible statistics, a masterpiece of data-driven performance. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It is a magnificent expression of progress. But the Lotus has reminded me that there's another older definition of what makes a car super. It's not about the numbers on a spec sheet, it's about the feeling you get when you're sitting in it. It's about the sense of occasion. It's about a shape that makes an 8-year-old boy stop and stare and wonder. It's about a noise that makes you grin like an idiot every time you turn the key. It's about the way the steering communicates the texture of the road to your fingertips. It is, in short, about the drama. A supercar should be a piece of theater, a rolling escape from the mundane reality of everyday life. The Esprit delivers this drama in spades. Getting into it is an event. Starting it is a ritual. Driving it, even at sensible speeds, is an intensely engaging experience. It makes a normal journey to the shops feel like a special occasion. It has that magical, undefinable quality that makes you look back at it over your shoulder after you've parked it. It has a soul. The Ferrari has one too, but it's a highly polished, digitally enhanced soul. The Lotus's soul is raw, analog, and honestly, wonderfully, authentically mechanical. It reminds you that the connection between driver and machine is what makes driving special. Ultimately, a supercar is a dream made real. It's the physical manifestation of a fantasy. For most of us, the $500,000 dream is, and will always be, just that, a dream. It's an image on a screen, a shape behind a velvet rope. The $10,000 dream, however, is something that feels attainable. It's a dream that you can reach out and touch, that you can put in your own garage. And this challenge has proven that an attainable dream is not necessarily a lesser one. The experience, the thrill, the sheer joy of ownership is not diluted by the lower price tag. In fact, in many ways, it is amplified. So, you've read all this, and you're thinking, I want some of that. You have a modest budget, a space in your garage, and a willingness to take a risk. What is my advice for you, the dreamer on a budget? First, and most importantly, do your homework. Do not fall in love with the first shiny object you see. The internet is your friend. Find the owner's forums for the car you're interested in. Read everything. Learn about the common faults, the nightmare jobs, the parts that are made of pure unobtainium. Knowledge is your shield against buying a complete and utter dog. Second, buy on condition, not on age or mileage. A car that has been cherished, with a thick folder of service history, is worth infinitely more than a low-mileage example that has been left to rot in a damp garage. That folder of receipts is the car's soul, its autobiography. It tells you that previous owners cared, that they fixed things properly instead of with gaffer tape and wishful thinking. Find a car that has been loved, ideally by a slightly obsessive man named Arthur, who keeps meticulous handwritten notes. These are the cars you want. They are the diamonds in the rough. Third, be prepared for the worst, but hope for the best. Set aside a contingency fund. Do not spend your entire budget on the purchase price of the car. You will need money for that first, inevitable, unexpected bill. It will come. It might be a new alternator, it might be a set of tires, or it might be something far more sinister. If you have the money set aside, it's an inconvenience. If you don't, it's a catastrophe that will turn your dream into a nightmare. Be realistic. You're not buying a new Toyota. You are buying a high-performance, hand-built, and aging piece of machinery. Treat it with the financial respect it deserves. Finally, embrace the experience. Owning a cheap old supercar is not like owning a normal car. It's a hobby. It's a relationship. There will be bad days. There will be days when it won't start, when it makes a noise that sounds like bankruptcy, when you will curse the day you ever saw it. But there will also be good days. There will be sunny Sunday mornings, on an empty B road, when the engine is singing, the steering is talking to you, and the world feels perfect. These are the moments you will cherish. These are the moments that make all the anxiety, all the expense, and all the oil stains on your driveway completely and utterly worth it. As our time with these two magnificent machines came to an end, we took them out for one last drive together. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the countryside. The red of the Ferrari looked deep and lustrous. The yellow of the Lotus seemed to shine from within. Driving them in convoy, you could see the whole history of the supercar in one moving picture. the low, sharp analog wedge of the past and the complex, sculpted, digital form of the future. They are separated by 30 years of progress, by hundreds of horsepower, and by a price tag that represents a lifetime of savings for most people. But for all their differences, they are united by a common purpose. They exist to do more than just transport us. They exist to excite us, to thrill us, and to make us feel alive. They are a protest against the mundane, a celebration of noise, speed, and glorious, beautiful inefficiency. They are rolling sculptures, mechanical works of art that speak to a fundamental, irrational part of our souls. Whether they cost $500,000 or $10,000, they are both guardians of the same flame, the flame of passion for the automobile. And in a world that is becoming increasingly sensible and sanitized, we need that flame to burn brighter than ever. The Ferrari is a glimpse into a future of breathtaking performance and digital perfection. It is an incredible machine that shows us what is possible. It is an object of immense desire, and rightly so. But the Lotus is a reminder of a past where the experience was more important than the numbers, where the connection between the driver and the road was paramount. It proves that the supercar dream doesn't have to be an unattainable fantasy. It can be a real, tangible, and affordable adventure. It can be sitting in your garage, waiting for you to turn the key and go for a drive. And so, as the two cars disappeared into the twilight, one with a cultured, high-tech scream, the other with a raw, turbocharged roar, the conclusion became crystal clear. The best supercar in the world isn't necessarily the newest or the most expensive. The best supercar in the world is the one that gives you the biggest adventure. It's the one that puts the biggest smile on your face. It's the one you can afford to own, to drive, and to love. And for us, on this journey, that car was a 30-year-old bright yellow Lotus, and on that bombshell, it is time to end.